NFG podcast, or Jay the Usual. It's Jay the Usual with NFG podcast here. I started the show the way I normally would, but if this is truly the emergency I think it may be, I want this to be as shareable as possible. And I know YouTube, as a private company, is they have several standards in order to make that possible. So I'm going to try to sit within those standards this time, even though I shouldn't, considering the name of my show. Um, but this is an emergency. You have to excuse me. I was caught in the middle of dinner, but this is of real importance. So we have reports flooding in of locations, not just in Massachusetts or Rhode Island, which is definitely the case, um, or in Indiana for that matter, or Canada, or other places around the world. Specifically around where I work, where I live, there are reports flooding in of bodies of geese and dead bodies of geese and dead bodies of swans being found in various locations, to the point where so many positive cases of avian flu have been found by the proper authorities that they have now issued indefinite closures of at least 5 locations, including parks. And there are only a handful that I can find so far of actual widespread reporting going out to either the Bristol County area, Rhode Island, or Massachusetts in general as to exactly what is occurring. So, and I've yet to acquire the full picture yet. So what this particular podcast is about is I'm going to take you with me on a journey. And this was the journey, the way that I first discovered how serious the COVID-19 pandemic and the ensuing madness that came to follow, which I reported as accurately as possible. And I believe during the entirety of the 5 years of insanity altogether, I don't believe we were found to have any of it wrong. Unfortunately, I wish a lot of it was wrong. I actually broke these glasses before this, but none of this is funny except for the way I look. And the reports right now are all verifiable. All the notices of closure are verifiable. And what we're going to do is we're going to bring you with us as I not only try to discover exactly how prevalent this particular issue is in this local area, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and the specified areas. We'll get into the specifics, actually, where those closures are. So far, all the closures seem to be several days to several weeks is the minimum. Several months to possibly 1 or 2 seasons is the plan to keep the closures. Now, the problem with bird flu is including this particular strain, supposedly. This is the information that I'm able to acquire so far, and this is what the public will be able to find readily. The virus doesn't just live within a host, it also lives within the fecal matter, the droppings of the geese, swan, and even the bodily fluids. So if the bodies out there right now that are roughly 15 minutes away from me, and possibly even some closer, the fluids draining out are actually, if you step on them, if you inhale them, some other animal starts to mess around with it, which of course there are. We have footage of that too, unfortunately. Bald eagles are feeding on geese and swans that are found in this area. I'm a photographer, so I regularly see these things. I go through all these groups, and it's kind of how I found out how bad this is. The bodies aren't being cleaned up because the normal services that would be able to do that are trying to mitigate mutation by mitigating spread. Unfortunately, this virus is able to spread from animal to human. It isn't able to be spread widely yet, and it doesn't spread human to human, which is why we haven't seen this become a major issue yet, because unfortunately when this virus spreads, it can kill a large number of the things that it infects. We're talking about unfortunately, we're talking about percentages that can range anywhere from 1% to reportedly 50 to 70%, uh, which if I'm going to try to get into the specifics of exactly what's happening, and I'm also going to try to explain all of this as I go so people can understand in general. You can rewatch this if you have to. I urge people to. I urge you to share this and all the information that we verify. Um, Now, you can look all these different things that we are telling you up and verify them. If we're saying anything wrong, we want you to report it to the show, say it in the comments, whatever, and we'll address it as it comes up because this is very important. Let's say it doesn't kill any people at all. Let's say it doesn't even make any people sick. The prices of eggs and chicken are going to rise drastically, and they already are in some places. And in fact, in some places, you can't even find eggs right now, which is something that happened during the COVID-19 pandemic. And what I want to do is show everybody how, not only how they can find all the information that I'm finding out themselves, but they can also prepare for something that I don't think anybody's really prepared for at all. At least nobody that I've talked to or listened to. So the very first thing that I saw was Brockton, and I'm going to go through this on a separate computer while I talk to you all, so you can all do the same. You don't have to, but this is all very easy, very quick. And the reason I'm doing this is because right now, not 15 minutes away from me, not only are there bodies, dead bodies. I want to stress that dead bodies of large fowl, which is a funny way to say that, but geese and swans, which is really sad that any animal's dying, but to see something so beautiful getting killed like this, the people are actively, regularly finding these bodies on different ponds in at least 5 different locations so far, within an hour's drive of my location, which is the Bristol County area. So this is why I want people to keep this in mind. Not just because of the park closures, not just because of what's going to happen with the economy, but this virus doesn't just spread to birds. And there are people out there that still have bird feeders out. There are people out there that they're going to be confused as to why possibly some zoos are going to be staying closed a little later in the season, and why certain pet foods are affecting certain animals, why there's going to be, like I said, not just the price hikes, but also the closures of places that you wouldn't normally think of. But I mean, think of where you see birds. The larger birds are somewhat of less of an issue, but if this were to mutate into the songbirds again, which is something that happened similarly in 2022, to prevent the spread, you'd be talking about things that are really, truly, pretty much everywhere. And if you start talking about stuff like that, whether or not it's something that is something that I can personally prove, they start making laws out there that say, well, you can't go outside because you're going to end up killing 10% of the people you come in contact with next, or all this other crap. There's nothing me or anybody else that I know of is going to be able to do to stop that crap from happening again. This is why I'm telling people this now, because things can get out of control very fast, and regardless of anything that I believe, I'm telling you things that I can verify. For a fact, there are dead bodies of birds being eaten right now by other birds, and we're filmed. This has been filmed and photographed. You can go on Rhode Island Wildlife Photos in the Facebook group and find they're actually, photographers are taking pictures of this stuff while other people are looking at these photos and contacting federal wildlife services. I'm not sure if that's run state by state or if that's just like some wide, countrywide agency, if they run by region, I don't know. But they're not going up to the bodies and verifying whether or not more than one is sick with this stuff. So if you have like handfuls of these animals, which is being found dead, even if they do verify one, they're not going to verify the rest because they're not going to go in the icy conditions of winter. You're going to see a lot of these in icy ponds, which I believe that was the case for at least 2 of the reports that were out of the 5 that happened around here. But you have Indiana, which is the next report that I found, and I'm going to tell you about the ones that I found, and then we'll go through the ones we're about to find together. Indiana has the largest chicken farm or farms in the entire country, and they recently found over 100, and I believe the culling number was 30,000, but that was only the recent culling. There actually been millions killed this year, And over the last several years worldwide, not only has it been several billion chicken that have been killed to prevent the spread of this virus specifically, but also billions, and I am saying billions with a B, billions of pigs. There were also billions of songbird deaths in 2022. They have to guess that. They can't find all the bodies. But they're looking at what's missing generally and finding that there were, if not hundreds of millions, possibly billions of songbirds that died from this virus or were somehow affected. Maybe there was some effect regionally, and we can hope that just like the bees disappearing several years back, that they'll just crop back up again. But when you start seeing places actually literally closing, and they start talking about there's an antibody project in a Canadian farm where they have 400 ostriches that the government wants them to kill, but they also want them to burn the petri dishes and the antibodies and the research. And the family didn't think that that sounded right. So now they're reporting that, and I'm starting to pour through these different reports of, well, there's these handfuls of these sick waterfowl everywhere, but I don't see any warnings about what you should do in like just a general media news or anything. Really, you had to look up specifically or on accident, like I had, something about it. And then more and more people started posting it. And instantaneously, it reminded me of COVID. Instantaneously, because that's exactly what happened the first time. Let's see what we got. Why you fine NGL bros, please. And it's like, okay, I don't know what any of that means. Unfortunately, YouTube shares this podcast to sometimes countries and places that literally have nothing to do with what I'm talking about. I could hashtag Massachusetts and it wouldn't matter. But this specifically has to do with people in Massachusetts and Rhode Island. And when they see it, they'll understand what's happening. And this is happening in supposedly Indiana. There are several other states that are obviously reporting being affected, but if this is as far spread in the wild as what we are seeing in as many different species as what we're seeing, and it's actively mutating, it's in places that we will never be able to report. However, by using what we can see and what we can put together and coalesce in all of these reports is how we find the real story. Now, let's play devil's advocate for a second and find out what the reports are actually saying.
Morning tonight from Riverside.
Now, there's problems with free use and things that are licensed, but if maybe you guys can correct me before we get bumped or blocked or whatever. If we listen to a report on the news, does that qualify as free use? Can we play that on the podcast live? Because we're going to be going through a little bit of this stuff, and this podcast is going to run for a little while. So I urge people to hit the share button. If you can't watch the whole thing, come back, rewatch if you have to. But
farms across the country continue to test positive for bird flu cases. The USDA is projecting egg prices will rise about 20% this year still.
Now, that report made it seem somewhat light, and he's only talking about egg prices. And at first, he's not really mentioning the bird flu right away, right? Now, let's get specifically down to Riverside County.
A warning tonight from Riverside County about bird flu cases at dairy and poultry farms. The Department of Public Health says animals at 23 dairy and poultry farms have tested positive.
Now, that's just 23 farms, right? Now, he didn't say animals. He said 23 farms. Now, even if you just had one animal at each farm, that's 23 animals. 2 animals at each farm, you got 46, don't you? Now, on one of these news sources, way up here, I'm scrolling up. You guys can't see that right now. Normally, I would face the camera that way, which we can do that if you guys require that of me. But I'll look in the comments and we'll see that. But all right, so now, and that those 2 reports were posted 20 hours ago a piece. Okay. Now, here's a report from the National Desk. This is about Massachusetts.
Bird flu appears to be widespread among birds in Massachusetts. That's according to state health and environmental officials who say the virus is likely present even in places where there has not been a confirmed case. The National News Desk, Jeff Harris, joins us with the concerning news, especially as cases nationwide continue to increase.
Multiple mass.
I can't play the whole thing, I don't think, so I'm going to try to skip around.
Massachusetts health. Great surprise. 7 confirmed cases in 10 states. As of Monday, there have been 67 confirmed cases in 10 states.
Now, that was posted 19 hours ago. Now, do you see where we're starting to find problems? There's a lot more than 67 cases, but they've only confirmed 67, which means if they don't confirm a certain amount, they don't have to put out any sort of, what do they call them? Public service announcements, warnings, right? So these postings are being done by state services that are completely unable to cover these wide swaths of landscape, not only just for the research of the virus and all the things related to it, the damage it's doing, but how far it goes. But you've got federal monies that I would imagine are being held back. So even if the state services were the only ones that had the technology, for instance, or something like that, the expertise in order to be able to start looking into exactly how far this stuff is spreading, where the antibodies are being found, and that has a lot to do with that ostrich farm that I mentioned. But there are reservoirs not only of virus but of antibody, and if nobody is out there acting as an investigative team in order to get ahead of this, and people are just out there in a lab experimenting with shit, we're going to end up with the same problem that we had with COVID. Because let's really play devil's advocate and say that COVID came from a lab, right? If it did, if it didn't come from a lab, rather, let's say it came from a wild animal, like it's what's very possible here. If that does happen, and we're not prepared for it, and within several months it kills 1, 10, 30% of 50% of all people across the planet, and unbelievable amounts of animals on top of it. So forget a rebound of society if your farming's wiped. What's the mitigation then? What do you do? It's like, well, I guess you don't do anything, do you? You're screwed. So we need to have somebody ahead of this now. It doesn't have to spread from a lab. And there's no stopping something that you're just allowing to run rampant throughout the... They have several bird flu vaccines, right? How good are they? Does anybody know? How many do they have? Does it work on a mutation that they don't even know exists yet? There's a lot of talk about a lot of things that people say that they're prepared for, but they're not. Like, we got the whole thing about, we're never gonna fully close up businesses again. We're never gonna completely shut down the economy again and the government and all these different things, right? We're never gonna do that again. However, what exactly happens, right? When let's say an alien, just not even. I'm going to give you one even more realistic. Let's say that China comes up with a type of camouflage that makes them invisible right now, and there's a small Chinese contingent, a military of like 50,000 guys, but they're all invisible, and you can't hear them, you can't smell them, nothing. Even if they bust a fire, you don't even know that anybody's even there, right? And they just start fucking slaughtering people. And they're armored, you can't kill them, right? And they're just gonna slaughter half of fucking everybody, right? And you're telling me, you're gonna tell me that you're gonna sit there and go, well, they might not kill fucking half of everybody. I mean, they may get tired along the way. Really? And then it's like, well, then we're gonna wait till we get to the point where a whole bunch of old people die, and then once it seems like maybe there's a lot of younger ones, then maybe we'll start giving a shit. And then what? You're gonna take another experiment and jam that up your ass? Come on. I think I know y'all a little bit better than that, don't I? Maybe not. I mean, what was the uptake of the vaccines? I don't know. I wonder what percentage of that was mRNA, and which ones were tainted? Tainted with what, by the way? Why would there be human DNA inside of stuff that isn't supposed to have human DNA? Why is it allowed to get into your DNA? You might want to start asking that before they start giving you another experiment to stick yourself and your family with. That way, when they start changing exactly what you are, so that way the FDA doesn't classify you as human anymore and start experimenting on you and telling you that you can't go outside to get help because the birds are coughing in your face. Well, I want you to think of me giggling, with a goatee. And I'm sitting there with the sunglasses and the hat, and I'm just tipping it to you, and I'm going, you goofy bitch. If I juggle eggs right now, right, because they're so expensive, would people start paying attention and start hitting that share button? I don't know. I don't think they would. We got viewership, I think up in the rough 78s lately. This is information you're not going to get anywhere else, folks. But let's take another look at what other reports are coming out. These are, it's funny. The pile of reports that I'm seeing are all coming out roughly 20, 21, 24 hours ago, 23. It's almost like there's more than more happening now than what people are saying. It's strange. Yeah, we got another news show. I wonder if there are more posts than there are confirmed cases of avian flu right now. Let's see. I'm not going to actually count them. I could get an algorithm to do it, but I'm bored. Nebraska now. Okay. That was 23 hours ago. 2025. 23 hours ago. Yeah. Okay. So you got 2 cases in commercial flocks. Of course, it spread from something wild. And I'm guessing they only tested the 2 because why would it only be in 2? Don't they feed from the same trough? Or maybe most of them getting over it and there's a mutation that's like slightly weaker, but it's just spreading rapidly and killing a lot more species than others? This is the information that's pertinent to people. And the reason I say this is because let's say for instance, okay, I went to the store today and this actually happened. A small flock of geese, not seagulls, unfortunately. That would have really made it a great joke there. But they actually were flying over my head, and they didn't shit on me, thank God. They actually would have scared the shit out of me, literally. And that's a double pun there. But they landed right where I was going to do some photography of this icy pond. And there are people that work there. There's actually a little contingency of like real estate businesses and stuff there. And people regularly have a walk path there. And my first thought was, man, that flying V that they're doing right now, right? I swear, it was as if they had like a few geese missing from their formation. And I'm like, you have to be shitting me. Now, I don't know if that's something they naturally do, but I've never seen it before. I've never seen it where their V looks like you just like took like a few birds out of like the center and like 1 or 2 off like the left center of it, and like it was like they were missing birds. I'm like, you have to be shitting me. That can't be real. But right afterwards is when I found out that it wasn't just Brockton, but 5 different locations within an hour's drive of me that were closed officially and indefinitely. It's parks you cannot enter, areas that you cannot enter. I think 3 of them were parks and 2 of them were like school grounds or some shit. Where they're regularly found. Now, in Florida, there were 2 baby eagles that I believe it was verified, but I've yet to get the report on it. I've only seen people just rebouncing the report. That 2, oh no, actually, I think I'm looking at it right now. There were, Crow reveals bird flu as cause of death for eaglets E24 and E25. So there are actual live cameras that watch baby eagles grow up, and I think these 2 are in Florida. And you can look this up yourself. This particular report is on NBC2 News. And I'm not sponsored by anybody. I'm not sure if I said that in the beginning. I probably didn't. I run my own business and stuff. But these birds died, and I guess the crow was found that landed in their perch and had bird flu confirmed. Let's see. And actually, in Florida right now, there's somebody that I have a source that I trust in Florida that's actually seeing egg prices upwards of $13 right now, which is hard to believe. But at the same time, I've seen them rise upwards as high as $8 during that songbird avian flu epidemic in 2022. Bird flu found in the United States. They're very careful about that wording in some of these. Goose found dead at Connecticut Zoo. Test positive for bird flu. And this is all within 1 day. Within 1 day, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I've already found 6 states so far. I haven't even gotten 6 posts in. All right. Let's see. So, and these are only so far it's only been birds. There actually is a seal that they were trying to get somebody to rescue in order to start rehabilitation for avian flu because they believe that's what it had, and nobody even came from outreach, even though it was called and reported. So I don't know what to tell you about that. They're supposed to, at the very least, either explain why they can't go out there or send a liaison, and they didn't do either. So I've yet to find out exactly what's going on with that, but I do know for a fact that during the songbird epidemic of 2022, and I believe there was another one in 2020, seals were reportedly widely affected not only by bird flu but also COVID. And if that's the case and seals are a reservoir for both, then I believe the fear from the government would be that the mutations may come from a species like that. Now, even if you had a good vaccine, a great one even, if within a few weeks this virus spreads across the earth and claims 5, 10, 50% of our species, or any species for that matter, it doesn't matter what good vaccine you have if you can't get it to all of them before they die. And this isn't me saying exaggerative stuff. This is just, that's the facts. That's exactly how it will happen. There is no other way for it to happen. All that's going to need to happen is out of all the billions of viruses in each one of those bodies of birds, every one of them, even the turds that they drop, every turd they drop, every crumb, every droplet of snot, every birds get into freaking everywhere and everything. And it's not just birds, it's pets now too. And people dragging it in with their feet and stuff, going where they are because the closures are only just starting. This stuff starts infecting people, not just animal to human, but human to human as well, or mutates in a way that really starts affecting us greatly. And like we can't go outside anywhere where birds are ever because the virus lives for a long time in the cold and we're in the middle of winter right now. We could be looking at months of another lockdown. This isn't a joke. This isn't for me to be like, oh well, lockdowns are the way to go. If your law bodies in your state decide that that's what's going to happen again, it's going to happen again. Especially if half the people start dying. Even if it's only 5% of people that or that you are seeing start dying. And God knows how many is going to cripple, by the way. That's all it's going to take. Remember, COVID was only 0.01 that they could even report accurately, like the people could actually see were like viciously sick with this stuff. And look at what we did. Did it work? Did it stop it? No. So if anything actually serious does happen, there is no stopping it, especially now, because now nobody thinks that we should have a lockdown if there is something serious, because they think that it's also going to destroy the economy at the same time. This is a setup for a monstrous fall. And like I said, it doesn't have to kill a single person to do it. Say it wipes out all chickens. Say it wipes out half of them. Say it wipes out fucking 10% of them. Where is that 10%? How much is that going to cost us? What about the eggs? What if it kills just the females? And these are things that are not out of the realm of possibility. I'm not sitting here talking about, and that's why I was going to bring up the alien as like a narrative that you could kind of like explain this, but it's not a good one, because it's like, this is not out of the realm of possibility. This is something that is one step away from literally not just changing everything, but ruining the entire planet, everything, so quickly that it'd be when we saw COVID spread in the beginning, right? And the mutations came. The mutations supposedly were spreading faster and faster, but even the initial strain the alpha strain was supposedly spreading at an unbelievable pace across the planet, which is why it couldn't be stopped, right? but it was a bullshit virus. It wasn't that serious compared to other things that we've had seen spread and be sick with, especially with SARS. Something with bird flu, it has a far greater chance of being more serious. And regardless of what species it affects, it's not just a damn shame you can't let it happen. If you can do anything to stop it, and if you allow it to just continue to do what it's doing, eventually it may gain the capability to start affecting our species, and you can't take that chance either. So that's why I'm trying to dig as much information out of this as humanly possible, because when things start getting so serious, they actually start closing places, when they refuse to go and investigate a body because they're afraid to even go near it. There's not just an issue, there's a real emergency. So let's delve a little bit more into this. Now I'm scrolling through these reports of people that are just jumping in now, and I've done this I'm in YouTube right now, but I only use that at the moment because this is so easy for people to look up. You could be anywhere. You could look this up on Google, on X, on Facebook, on I don't know what's on Sky Blue or Blue Sky or whatever the hell's on there, but anywhere where you have any reservoir for media, you're gonna find this story, but you have to look it up because it's only local sources that are reporting this, and that's a major problem because their views, I think, even their views, their feeds, I think, are getting squashed because you're only getting several hundred views at a time, and that's not enough people to tell people exactly what the hell's going on. There are no major sources covering this. So, are people at risk of bird flu from a backyard feeder? Well, they're not at risk from the feeder or the birds that directly feed from them, but if those birds live close to other birds that are, such as the geese and the swans that are found, then yes. And the crows, apparently, and the eagles.
Fox 4's Anvar.
So we got Fort Myers, Florida. We got Virginia now. This is all within the same day. Virginia, DWR warns of increase in bird flu cases on Eastern Shore. Number of sick or dead wild birds. So they're seeing sick wild, and they're actually wide scale reports of wild birds being found dead in groups of 5 or more. And if you are finding that, the CDC is telling you to get away from them as quick as possible, wash your hands and take your shoes off outside, and contact whatever the CDC wants you to contact. You have to look at the website to find out. I'll check myself. We're actually going to be looking at the CDC's page in just a moment. I'm just trying to get through just a handful more of these just to show people how simple this is to find out exactly what's going on, but also if this is so widely found, so easily found, then why isn't this something that your major news sources are sharing? And remember, YouTube's also kind of blocking this, so if you see any of this, you guys have to hit the share button because we're getting squashed right now. The more I talk about these things, the more we're going to get blocked. You can't let whoever the hell is taking advantage of all this horrible shit happen and win, because that's what happened last time. Bird flu impacts local egg supply prices, and that's where? North Carolina. Bird flu is believed to be widespread among birds across Massachusetts, according to health officials. That was a big Romulus.
And now to a health.
The hell is Romulus? There's a place called freaking Romulus? Where the hell is that?
And now to a health alert tonight. The state DEC confirming birds from Lakeshore Landing in the town of Romulus have tested positive.
Syracuse.
And now to a health alert tonight. The state DEC. And now to a health
Yeah,
alert
come on.
tonight. Landing in the town of Romulus have tested positive for bird flu. And test results, they say, from birds on Onondaga and Seneca Lakes are still pending. Seneca Lake Pure Waters Association says the disease has been found in dead snow
I don't know.
on the lake.
I don't know my
Cashong Point and the north end of the lake. At least 50 to 60.
I don't know my capitals well enough.
Alone there at Cashong Point.
Syracuse.
Bird flu is found in an area. There is no way to effectively manage
50 to 60
birds,
geese.
So in many cases, there's going to be no response there.
No response yet again. So that's what I'm talking about. Is there are wide swaths of area. I think Syracuse is Illinois. I may be wrong on that. I'm not sure. But as I'm saying, there are several states that, and it may be every state at this point, that have clusters of these things that they're finding, but they're not reporting because they won't, and they're not even going near them to test them or to even get the bodies back. So they're just continuously spreading the virus. The dead bodies are spreading this stuff, and the local wildlife that are feeding off of these dead bodies, the carrion, are also spreading the virus and spreading the mutation and the chance for this to get bad. It's already getting bad, obviously, because it's surrounding me already. Sudden death of eaglets. The bird flu is scary right now. Yeah. Let's see. First human case of bird flu.
Hey, everybody.
Oh, yeah. All right. So there was one case, and it was. Actually, no, it looks like it reported this. There was one case in the UK and one case in Canada and one case in the United States that was reported to be human to human transmission, but they didn't report it widely because they weren't sure if it had come directly from those people because they had worked in the same proximity as those other the animals that had tested positive. At least I think that's what was reported, but I don't know. And the first reported bird flu spread from human to human death in the United States just happened, I believe, several days ago. An animal pandemic has started. Several pet species, zoo species are being affected. Several zoos, especially in Rhode Island and Massachusetts, are going to be opening later on in the season, or they will be having their bird exhibits specifically and a few other different exhibits related to this closed, either for the opening season or indefinitely. While this continues, PCR testing leads to more slaughtered on suspicion in the UK. This was a day ago, so they're culling more birds out there. They keep reporting these really low numbers, but it's only because all they have to do is find one in order to order a culling, and then you can have farms upwards of 30,000. I think maybe like high numbers like hundreds of thousands killed. If we're seeing billions worldwide, I would have to expect that that's what's occurring.
Did you know the bird flu?
You only look a few more of these. Bird flu detected in UK. Unfortunately, predictions come true. Yeah, blah, blah, blah. Keeping your pets safe from bird flu. As I said, I believe some cats were affected, but it was from raw chicken in a cat food, was the report that I found. The state releases new guidance surrounding recent bird flu cases. That's Western Mass. So Massachusetts right now, and I'm not sure if I said that eloquently enough. Massachusetts is the epicenter right now for at least the reporting of bodies being found of dead birds, large birds specifically, of geese and swans that are infected with bird flu and are verified.
Bird flu.
Update tonight.
Okay, now we're up to the 2-day mark. Mass officials warn of widespread bird flu outbreak. That was the Bay State area. Mass Department of Wildlife issues bird flu guides after bird flu in Taunton. Okay, so Taunton was another one that I saw. Plymouth is another one. Tiverton. Let's see what else. And these are all in the Bristol County area. Tiverton is in Rhode Island. These all are in Massachusetts. So really, within the past 5 days is when we start seeing these swans and geese dying off. And this is in the handfuls. This isn't just one or two. And we may be seeing numbers in excess of 10 to 50 in some cases, dead bodies of large birds. Bird flu strikes Ohio. Ohio is another one that I saw recently. Tuscarawas River killing dozens of geese. Now, if you're killing dozens of wild geese out there, why are you reporting that there's only 67 confirmed cases in the entirety of the United States? This is what I'm talking about, folks. I'm trying to get everybody as keyed in as possible. You can't say that there are dozens of geese dead in Ohio and then turn around and say that there's only 67 cases in the entirety of the United States. It doesn't work that way. That was only 2 days ago. as we find these incongruencies, I want people to understand that this is how people are getting confused out there and how misinformation is spreading, because you don't even have to have like some sort of malicious bullshit out there. All that really has to happen is people get confused by half-ass reporting. And I assure you there are government bodies that are forcing some of this crap down their throats. Egg prices surges, bird flu. Senator Smith asks RFK Jr. about bird flu. I didn't see that. Let's take a quick look.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, Mr. Kennedy, you have
50
said
seconds.
that you want to give infectious diseases a break for about 8 years. You spoke about this with Senator Cantwell. My question to you has to do with avian flu. Over 100 million birds called. The disease has spread to dairy cows, and there are now 67 confirmed human cases and 1 death.
67 human cases. Now the story is getting a little clearer. And this is why I go to multiple sources. So we've been jumping sources, and right now we are at PBS NewsHour. This is, I'm going to show you guys as I'm doing this. Yeah, we're almost, boy. We're going to do several podcasts about this subject, so I want people to be aware. Okay, so we are on PBS NewsHour. Senator Smith asks RFK Jr. about bird flu. Okay, now 50 seconds, and we're 20 seconds in, and we already found more information, more useful information than we've had in the past 10 posts. Okay, now what was just said is that there are 67 confirmed human cases, and those human cases, I would imagine, are mostly farm workers. If there are any that are infected from wild sources, that is something that you'd want to know, because that could possibly be a mutation that isn't something that we're aware of yet. We are actively studying the farm reports, but the farm reports are going under or unreported because they're only finding 1 or 2 and then saying that they just order a culling and they don't want to check out the rest because they want to stop the spread, and that's how they'll do it. But actually, that's how they're stopping the actual reporting. So this is almost the opposite of COVID. Instead of over-reporting, they're under-reporting, and it looks like they're going to cause the pandemic to exacerbate in this way. We're going to be on this podcast for a long time, folks. So, like I said, if you have to jump back in, no, we're going to jump back in. You can jump back in periodically. I'm going to try to get the sections that I don't know how they do it, but I'm going to try to go into the YouTube playlist so that way you can see part by part exactly what we're talking about, or I'll do another podcast to explain that. Because there's going to be a lot of information here. Let's go back. So let's let her finish.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, Mr. Kennedy.
Hey, don't worry, boys. It's almost over. You're very good boys. Wuhan and Wilhelm are getting aggravated. We're going to do an episode with them soon.
Preventing pandemics. That's essentially part of my job.
What do you think is causing the avian influenza?
Very excited.
I think the H5N1 virus is.
So that's good to hear, because in a recent book, I will submit this for the record because we don't have that much time, Mr. Kennedy has questioned the scientific basis for germs causing disease and the power of vaccines and antibiotics.
I've never questioned that, Senator.
Well,
okay, so then she just starts spouting bullshit. But okay, so what we're gonna do now is now as my brain's starting to get pretty. Let's go to like the 3rd day at least. Let's keep scrolling just a little bit longer. Bird flu, are eggs still safe to eat? If they're cooked, yes. If they're not, no. And raw milk is another danger, which is why California is going to probably get a warning soon as well. A lot of people like to drink that raw stuff out there. What happens when you get bird flu? Actually, that might be something we might want to talk about real quick. I'll use the CDC's explanation just to be as accurate as possible, as accurate as that's going to be. What I will say is the people that have survived this, that were infected with it, that I found the reports for so far, before we even get to the CDC page, which I will go to in 1 minute, you get standard pneumonia-like flu with flu symptoms, pneumonia-like symptoms with flu symptoms. And I believe what kills most people in the end is, if not the fever, the pneumonia. And I haven't seen any reports of the diarrhea killing people, but that may also be the case. Any which way you cut it, it's not nice. So let's take a look here.
Wow, guys.
This one says worried about birds with flu, not so fast. And he's got an hour and 10 minutes. Yeah, that's interesting. We'll look at stuff like that too if people find any actual good sources for stuff like that. Rising cases in euthanized birds. That's 2 days. I don't see any source for that. 2025 mystery virus explained. New bird flu outbreak in California. I can't make this stuff up, folks. Ready? 2025 mystery virus explained. New bird flu outbreak in California. HMPV and COVID. Why is everyone sick in 2025? Okay, guys. So, looks like we're onto something. Now, the first thing we're going to look up is the relationship between bird flu, which I'll type in as avian flu, and swine flu. News about avian and swine? No. Relationship. I don't want to use Bing though. Bing sucks. Let's see if I can find another. Of course, this is gonna be the only thing that's gonna let me access easily right now. Let's try this again. Bird flu in animals and people. Causes and how it spreads. Human immunity and severe influenza. H3 viruses. Swine. And an antigenic sites with avian were most distantly related. There's a lot of jargon in between while I'm trying to catch up on this. Detected in pig in the U.S. Bird flu has been detected in a pig in the U.S. Now, you have swine flu, correct? Right? They call it swine flu for a reason because it infects piggies. Piggies! My little guinea pigs are going crazy. Don't worry, boys. The show's almost over. And we'll turn the lights down for you. You can have your sleepies, okay? Just eat your yummies and be a good boy. It's really freaking out right now. But basically, you have swine flu, right? And you got bird flu getting into a pig. Now, let's say that pig has swine flu as well. What happens, and this may even be true of the some of the antibodies as well, but let's just say, I don't know how that works exactly, so that may be bullshit. But let's just say the bird flu and the swine flu end up in the same cell in the same pig. And all of a sudden, it ends up acquiring certain parts from each one of the virus, and it creates a totally new virus. That's how you get mutation. That actually happens billions and billions of times, but most of the time the virus sucks and is like, like, kill me, like that sort of shit. So the body just burns it off and, fights it off really easily and just goes, I got here. But then you get one that comes out and it's like, sleek, badass, and has the right jab and shit, and you have a real problem on your hands. Now, the problem with allowing this stuff to just spread through nature, which some people stupidly suggested, and allow it to just spread through the farms, and it's natural for this to happen, like a magical forest fire burns off all the old wood. This is what someone really stupidly said publicly. Farms are not natural, and having all the same species all congregated in the same place, really close, with humans specifically, and no other animal, is not natural. Vaccinating for viruses that you create through these practices are not natural, which also boosts the mutagenic relationship that those viruses have to those animals. Then you allow it to spread to wild animal reservoirs, allow it to spread exponentially and without any sort of stoppage, and then it starts getting into other species and starts treating them as animal reservoirs, which they are already containers and species for other viruses that are related to this virus, and you end up with new mutations. So you cannot allow this to spread without doing something about it. At the very least, researching exactly how serious it is. And I would not suggest to anybody that they go out there and start testing in a more rapacious manner to find out how far the bird flu has spread. But I would suggest that maybe, I don't know, somebody repurpose some drones out there that they're using to do a bunch of stupid shit, and instead get them to start finding out exactly how many birds are out there that are dead and dead from this crap. Uh, Something slightly more than what they're doing, I would think, than, reporting that there's only 67 cases, and not saying that they're human cases, and then you find out, oh, it's the human cases they're talking about, not the animal, so they're not even really reporting the farm animal deaths either. Just found that out live for you guys. Now, the reason I'm looking up avian and swine flu, and I'm not going to look up what I'm not going to look up what I'm about to say next. You have to do this yourself. The relationship between not just swine flu and avian flu and a few other different flus also correspond to the COVID virus. Now, COVID may not have been so serious the first time around, or the 10th. But if you start mixing this shit with something that can kill 10 to 50% of the people across the earth, and you allow it to spread across the earth within 2 weeks to 2 months, like COVID did, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't that biblical apocalypse? That's the end of the world, isn't it? It's the end of the human species as we know it, and countless other species. Even if you don't believe in the human species, even if you don't like people, even if you don't like what I'm saying, if you like birds, I would share this. If you like life, I would share this. If you have anybody you love out there, I would share this. This is how I felt when COVID first started spreading, and I prayed and I prayed and I prayed that it wasn't something more serious. Right? I prayed that the reports were wrong, and thank God that those prayers were answered. Okay? Because God forbid anything worse than that happens, because there is no group of people out there that's prepared for this. There isn't. Let's go back to the. I'm actually going to, I'm going to look up the CDC explanation for the avian flu. No, it's just doing its own thing. Come on, man. And this is not normal. This is not a normal part of my podcast. This is an emergency podcast to try to get the word out. I know the algorithm's getting squashed right now because all of the comments stopped. So anybody that sees this at any point later on, right now during live, whatever, make sure to hit that share button, because somebody has to get the word out about this before this gets more serious. The bird flu is spreading rampantly in Massachusetts right now. Now, urgent attention is usually recommended by healthcare providers. This is the CDC's. Actually, no, this isn't. I'll go straight to the CDC's response. Current situation: H5 bird flu, which is actually correctly named H5N1, I believe, is widespread in wild birds worldwide and is causing outbreaks in poultry and U.S. dairy cows, with several recent human cases in U.S. dairy and poultry workers. And right in the beginning of the page, I'm not seeing any numbers yet. None. No warnings, really, just what to know. While the current public health risk is low, CDC is watching the situation carefully and working with states to monitor people with animal exposures. CDC is using its flu surveillance systems to monitor for H5 bird flu activity in people. Not using the COVID ones, though. Find that strange. H5 bird flu detections in U.S. Dairy cattle. Ongoing multi-state outbreak. Wild birds. Widespread. That's all it says. Poultry. And you can click on these things and it says more, obviously. But as its explanation, that's what it says. Not widespread worldwide. Widespread in the eastern North United States. It's just everywhere. But it's not that big of a threat. Poultry flocks, sporadic outbreaks, mammals, sporadic infections. How many different ways can you say a bunch of shit got infected? But try to say it in a way that doesn't sound that bad. Person to person spread. None. That's a lie. Current public health risk. Low. That's a lie too. 67 confirmed total reported human cases in the United States. Well, at least they were accurate here. 1 death associated with H5N1 bird flu infection in the United States. You know, it's funny. You can confirm a certain amount of farm deaths before eventually it becomes too much, right? But I wonder what the acceptable amount of human cases is that they're willing to look at and tell people about before they tell people, all right, just calm that down until we figure something out. I'm just saying. I'm not saying that that's not happening. I'm just asking when that does start to happen because there was a lot of lying and bullshit during COVID that we want to prevent now, don't we? So for everyone that watches this and gets scared, believe me, I'm more scared than you are. I had to face talking to the National Guard directly and a few other different sources from military and state. I talked to people who ran nursing homes, a bunch of different stuff, and they were all too scared to talk publicly, and that was during COVID. So this is going to get dark fast. I promise you that. So if you enjoy that sort of stuff, keep watching. Let's see. State totals of infections for humans are reporting a shit ton in California. And they're saying those were from dairy herds. And I say shit ton. 38 is what they've confirmed. And this was out in California. 36 were confirmed out of 38 were from the dairy herds. 2 were exposure sources that were unknown, which I imagine were from the wild source that infected the herd in the first place. Now I'm only going through conjecture and the points where I can satisfactorily say that you can find this out on your own. That would probably be the most likely logistical source. Poultry farms and culling operations caught 11 in Washington. I've yet to find the reports on that, so that's another one we'll have to add to the list. We also have Iowa, Louisiana, Michigan, Missouri, Oregon, Texas, Washington, Wisconsin, and Colorado. Colorado would have probably been the Syracuse, I think, right? Was that Iowa? I don't know. I'm really terrible with the capitals, but I will tell you this: in all capital letters, holy shit! Because if they're only reporting like handfuls of this stuff in all these different places, and they're already doing cullings, what should I be doing when I have 5 different locations of handfuls of clusters of dead birds being found all around me all at once? Is that something that we should be concerned with? I think that maybe we should. I don't see Massachusetts on this list, which I find very disconcerting as well. That was a confirmed human case summary since 2024 by state and exposure list. So they're telling people not to enter the parks, but there have yet to be any confirmed infections to humans from the animals in Massachusetts or Rhode Island. How can that be? How would you be able to okay that? I'm asking, and I'm also saying these things to you guys so that way you probably don't have the answer to that, but these are the questions you should be asking your state representatives and your federally elected officials, especially since you have a totally new group of people to go to with these issues. They should be able to handle it more effectively, supposedly, but that's yet to be seen. Louisiana, 1 additional case was previously detected in a poultry worker in Colorado 2022. That's something else entirely. When a case tests positive for H5 at a public health laboratory, but testing at CDC is not able to confirm H5 infection per Council of State and Territorial Epidemiologists, guidance, a case is reported as probable. Probable case with commercial poultry exposure. Poultry farms are culling operations. Washington, Arizona. They didn't mention Delaware before, but they do now. Specimens tested 104,000. Got my doubts about that. I think they had representative testing there where they would probably test a representative group within that amount of specimens, and use that. So like they would test 10,000 out of a group of 100,000 or something like that. Probably closer to 1,000 really, because I mean the logistics of this would be insane. One, and two, even if you did have 104,000, we're talking about billions of wild animals. So there's no way to accurately test the specimens. That I would imagine that they're even even the ones that they're actually being reported and finding. It looks like it's already to that point. 4 human cases since February 25th, 2024 through national flu surveillance, which means the flu surveillance sucks if they found 63 other ones and the only ones that they found with that were 4. So why the hell are you even using just that then? And this is why I looked at all this stuff before, because this is all the official reporting of what they're actually doing about it, and it looks like it's hogwash. Total people tested 660 plus. I'm taking my glasses off. This is getting serious. Total people tested 660 plus. So they've only tested 660 people, and yet they're closing parks countrywide. And they're culling tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of farm animals countrywide. And worldwide, this is a problem. So we're not even getting accurate information about any of that. $11,065 wild birds detected as of January 28th. 11,000. Oh my God. As of January 31st, 2024, so literally a year to the date, 150 million, because the number's close enough. 150 million cases of poultry affected by the virus. And those are the confirmed cases. I don't understand this. When they're saying poultry, that's farmed birds, which means those are the ones they can actually monitor, and that was for a full year. Now, if that's what you're able to report, and the numbers in the wild are 10 to 20, even just that is enough to make me shudder. They'd be able to spread worldwide in no time. You wouldn't be able to get accurate numbers on any of this. If there are numbers out there of infections that you're unable to stop with a vaccine or a culling, I mean, that's pretty much the end of it. Unless it burns itself out, which is very rare. Well, it's not very rare in the virus world, but it's very rare to our eyes in reports like this. 16 states with outbreaks in dairy cows alone. 951 dairy herds affected, 51 states with outbreaks in poultry. This is the CDC's page, folks. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. The current outbreak began in late March 2024 with the detection of H5N1 bird flu in dairy cows. So, in that, they're talking about a particular mutagen, and they're not willing to name it. I think they made that mistake with COVID. It's like they're doing the opposite here. They're trying to keep people calm before it goes bad, but it's already kind of going bad right now. Detections in wild birds. USDA reported H5N1 bird flu detections in wild birds. The latest H5N1 bird flu detections in wild birds by state and county are provided on this webpage. This webpage will be updated daily after 4 p.m. to reflect any new data. Let's see what's on here. Birds detected, 11,065. That's year to date, right? Jurisdictions affected, 52. Counties affected, 1,210. So there were only 10 birds detected within each one of these counties? I kind of doubt that. Even as an average, I kind of doubt that. Let's see. And then you look at the map that they show you, and it's in such a patchwork that anything in between, there's either uninhabitable farm space where very rarely anything would live anyway, mountain ranges, and lakes. So every and deserts. So every place is affected by this. Red-tailed hawk, foxes. I'm seeing owls. Owls have been dropping dead in the Massachusetts area. Actually, we've got some footage of that. Yet again, you look in Rhode Island Wildlife group on Facebook, or I will be sharing some of this on J. Usual Multimedia or NFG Podcast on Facebook as well later on. We also are active on X now, Twitter, whatever you prefer. Hooded merganser, which is, I believe, a species of songbird, but I'm not 100% because I don't study ornithology. Broad-winged hawk. It seems to be the larger birds: ducks, bald eagles, crows. Looks like Texas, Colorado, Michigan, New York. It's everywhere. It's literally everywhere. Bird flu in dairy cows. A multi-state outbreak of HPAIA. Okay, so that's the mutagen name that you need to look for. They will call it H5 or H5N1 in order to simplify it for people. I imagine that's probably because they know it's going to need a public face now, which is sick for me to even say that they know that and they're not warning people, but whatever. That's what seems to be happening. This is the first time that these bird flu viruses, because that's not how they characterized any of this when I researched it in 2022. I can guarantee you that right now. I probably still have screenshots of it as well. I saved some stuff from when we used to do a show called Cover Your COVID. In the United States since 2022, it was bird flu was first reported on March 25th, 2024. This is the first time that these bird flu viruses have been found in cows in the United States since 2022. USDA APHIS has reported HPAIA H5N1 virus detections in more than 200 mammals. They will not specify which ones yet, as far as I can see. I did look at those reports in 2022, and like I said, they included seals, I believe, a species of mink or weasel, and maybe even some seabirds, and I think another ocean-based mammal, like a dolphin or something, but I can't remember. Those are reports that I did save, though, so I will try to go back if they don't have it here. Some of this information may get buried too. I don't know. Dairy herds affected 951. States with outbreaks in dairy cows 16. So it seems like the mutagen for the dairy cows may not have spread as much yet. And that's as of today, actually. That report's been updated. Data on outbreaks in dairy cows are retrieved from the USDA. Monitoring for H5 in people. CDC systems that monitor national, state, and local level influenza data are being used during the current avian influenza situation. Well, I know of a shit ton of people that have been sick with flu-like symptoms and various other symptoms that were kind of weird for the past several months. And like it said in those reports, everybody seems to be sick in 2025. So what are the odds that there's a weak version of this stuff getting people sick? Do they have anything that's allowing people to figure that out? I've yet to see it. I want you all to remember too that this podcast has been live for an hour, and we had some viewers in the beginning, but we've had 0 viewers for the past 45 minutes or so, ever since I started mentioning that we were talking about the bird flu. So the story is actively getting buried by the algorithm, most likely by Google. Otherwise, you would at least see like the regular standard amount of like a few people seeing this, even just the people that get Massachusetts based stuff or anything like that. Like any of the things that I mentioned in the title should be coming up, and it's just not. And in fact, they've resorted to sending the podcast and feed to countries that don't speak English. Yeah, we've dealt with that too. So in Massachusetts and Rhode Island, I would definitely be very wary of the bird flu right now. Um, Parks that are closed and that have signage about this, don't go in them. Do not go in them. And don't trust the fact that you're not seeing these reports in major news, because I believe that that may be intentional in order to allow the virus to continue to spread. Because I think if people knew how bad this was, they wouldn't continue to let this happen. I'm seeing reports of this spreading in France, Peru, Chile, Argentina. This is on the CDC page. And these are in amounts that are so much that they're actually having active farm cullings at the moment. Sea elephants in Argentina. So it is affecting seal species. Sea lions in Peru. Okay. All right. I'll show you guys this specifically. Okay, specifically, recent HPAI-A H5N1 infections in mammals have been detected in sea lions in Peru and Chile, sea elephants in Argentina, and foxes in Canada, France, and other countries. So that's verified. Now, what are the odds that if you can infect a sea lion with this stuff, that you can infect other mammals that are in the ocean? And then what happens when you start infecting things that are feeding off of their crap and the birds and all that other stuff, and it just continues to spread? And the interesting thing is, I don't think that you can get fish or sharks infected with a virus per se. I think they can get infected with bacterial infections that spread, but I don't think that they're affected by viruses, and I wonder why that is. It may have to do with why they've lived so long on this planet. Maybe we might want to look into that, considering we have CRISPR now. The wide geographic spread of HPAI-A, I'll call it HPI, or H5N1, viruses in wild birds, poultry, and some other mammals, including in cows, could create additional opportunities for people to be exposed to these viruses. Therefore, there could be an increase in sporadic human infections resulting from bird and animal exposures, which is why I was mentioning about some of my fishermen friends out there that are near where seabirds, especially seagulls, because they're always where fishermen are, where they poo, where they stand, anywhere. It's extremely dangerous to be next to these things right now, because the birds are what's getting people sick. It's not people getting people sick. So we have to be aware of that. Even if the risk of these viruses spreading from birds to people has not increased, because supposedly the chance is low of that happening, but with it spreading so much in the wild reservoirs, that they can't say that safely enough. CDC believes the current risk to the general public from bird flu viruses is low. People who have job-related or recreational exposure to infected birds or animals, including cows, are at greater risk of contracting HPAI-A H5N1 virus. Well, if you step in a pile of shit, you're a little more likely to get dirty, aren't you? CDC has recommendations related to testing, treatment of HPAI-A H5N1, and infection and prevention of exposures to these viruses, which means they want you to contact them as soon as you find more than a handful of birds dead. And they are finding them actively. And like I said, there are at least 5 different locations within an hour drive of where I am, which means it is literally epidemic level where I am. It is a pandemic of epic proportions. While getting a seasonal flu vaccine only prevents seasonal flu and will not protect against H5N1 bird flu, it is important that people who may have frequent exposure to infected or frequently infected birds or other animals get a seasonal flu vaccine, ideally 2 weeks before their potential exposure. This is because it can reduce the prevalence and severity of seasonal flu and might reduce the very rare risk of co-infection with a human seasonal virus and an avian virus at the same time, and the theoretical risk that reassortment between the two could result in a new virus. This is on the CDC's page. I'm reading this shit so everybody can see it, so everybody understands why I'm saying these things. They are saying that they are actively trying to prevent people from getting the regular flu and staying sick with the flu, because the spread of the avian flu is so prevalent that if somebody ends up getting sick with both at the same time, which is highly likely, especially in the case of people that are around birds all the time, and I'm going to say regardless of where they are, because if it's in the wildlife reservoirs, it doesn't matter where you are. As long as you're anywhere where birds are, there's a good chance that you are going to create a mutation of the virus by having both of the viruses in your body at the same time. This is their words. So for them to sit there and say that the threat is low is foolish, because it's all it has to do is mutate once. If it's spread this much, you can't allow people to just walk around. I hate to say that to people, but you can't take a chance with half of the population. You can't take a chance with a tenth of the population. Sorry to tell you. All right. And the rest is just all a bunch of news stories that they choose to tell you. And if you ask more specific questions like what causes bird flu in pets and other animals, then you can get details on all that, which we will touch on all of this. I want to get the actual, what do you call it? Monitoring about. Let's get the basic story, and then we'll go into the symptoms. So bird flu is a disease caused by avian influenza A viruses that usually spread between birds, not people. One subtype of bird flu caused by avian influenza A, H5 virus, is spreading worldwide in wild birds and causing sporadic outbreaks in U.S. poultry and dairy cows. We already know all that stuff. Which looks like the CDC is watching the situation carefully and working with states to monitor people with exposures to animals that are infected or potentially infected with avian influenza A viruses. Animals can spread the virus through mucus, saliva, or feces, poop, shit, caca, the good stuff. And anybody not wearing PPE that comes in contact with anything that the birds have come in contact with, or their feces, saliva, or mucus, can become infected by this virus. Human illness from bird flu has ranged from mild symptoms to severe illness resulting in death. However, most human cases of H5 bird flu in the United States have been mild to date. Again, not something they would necessarily need to report if it was happening, even if it was happening right now. No person-to-person spread has been identified in the United States, but limited person-to-person spread has been reported in the past in other countries. Limited person-to-person spread means the virus might spread to one or two people, but does not continue to spread. Influenza type A viruses can be further classified into subtypes, which is why they have the H5N subtype number. And then you have, flu A, flu B, and all that different. They have many different ways to separate all the different mutations. That kind of has to do with, specifically has to do with the molecular build of the virus. But it also is an easier way for people to be able to define which version they have, how to treat it, and what symptoms will coincide with that. Mild signs and symptoms may include eye redness and irritation, conjunctivitis, which sadly and sickly enough, I've been seeing people and this is in real life. I've been seeing people with conjunctivitis. I've been seeing people with stuff leaking out of their ears that looks like blood. And this happened last year to me and another person that I know. And I nearly lost my hearing in one of my ears completely. And I only luckily got better, and we're not even sure if the medicine that I used was what did it. This took months. So we got mild fever, temperature of 100 degrees or greater, feeling feverish, cough, sore throat, runny or stuffy nose, muscle or body aches, headaches, fatigue. Classic cold/fever symptoms. There's no diarrhea listed in there just yet. So we'll continue to go through. Less common symptoms include diarrhea, nausea, or vomiting. Eye redness has been the predominant symptom among recent U.S. cases. I'm just high right now. I want people to think that I'm sick. Fevers may not always be present. Yet again, asymptomatic infection is definitely possible. Signs and symptoms of moderate to severe disease: high fever, shortness of breath or difficulty breathing, altered consciousness, seizures, which the altered consciousness and seizures would have to do with the extremely high fever. The fever, I believe, would be what kills you or a symptom of the fever. And the shortness of breath or difficulty breathing would be the secondary or tertiary um, response that you would see in the finding of a death. I would suggest. I could be wrong on that, and I am trying to be as accurate as possible here. Exposure risk. We're getting bird flu. Exposure to surfaces contaminated with animal secretions, excretions also is another risk. Eating undercooked or uncooked poultry, eggs, or consuming unpasteurized milk with infected dairy cows could also be an exposure risk for infection with avian influenza A viruses. Consuming properly prepared and cooked or pasteurized products is safe. People at risk. These are the most likely. Poultry and dairy and other livestock farmers and workers, other livestock workers' backyard, bird flock owners. Quite a few people like that in Tiverton, Rhode Island. Gonna want to get this message out to those people. We can't do that if we only got a few people watching. Gotta hit that share button, folks. Veterinarians and veterinary staff, animal health responders, public health responders, dairy laboratory workers, food processing workers handling raw milk and other confirmed or potentially contaminated materials, slaughterhouse workers performing certain tasks on lactating dairy cattle, including unloading or handling live lactating dairy cattle for slaughter, including working in holding pens and tasks involved with antemortem inspection, postmortem processes, including the postmortem inspection, handling and transporting of viscera, removing and transporting objects. Basically, anything that you are touching in the process of processing a chicken or a cow, all the way up to the raw packaging that you get at the supermarket, all of it is up. And even the raw milk and all that, eggs, all of it can infect you. They were looking into trying to vaccinate all of the eggs ahead of time to try to prevent a major problem from happening, but I don't think they got ahead of it yet. Hunters are another one that they're mentioning specifically. Well, I got a friend of mine. I got to tell about this then. Oh, okay. All right. I'm gonna drop out for now. I needed people to be as aware as possible. This is basically as far as I've gotten. As I said, it's Plymouth, Brockton, Tiverton, um, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, Bristol County area. Right now is the epicenter of reporting for the bird flu right now. I don't know if it's the actual epicenter or not. I don't think anybody knows that for sure. But I can say that the spread is not just not just statewide, but countrywide, most likely worldwide. And we have reached, it looks like, pandemic or epidemic levels. Um, it also looks like those closures of those parks may be indefinite. As long as the weather remains cold, the virus can stay alive in the feces and on the surfaces that those infected birds, dead or alive, have touched. So until we can get cleanup services out to those places and or it gets warm enough where the sun can kill this stuff on contact, then you're going to be seeing closures spreading. And I wonder how the public's going to react to that. So what we're going to be dropping in on podcasts simultaneously as we capture more updates, as I get roughly about an hour to an hour and a half of content to report to people. I'll drop in on a live cast like this so people can ask questions. We can actively research and find answers, and I can show you the sources for that without having to make people wait for an update. And I'm hoping that that will serve the public in a more specific way, and it will hopefully get blocked a lot less than it did during the COVID time, when even the highest sources that you would think that are meant to protect our country from such calamity weren't even prepared for a common cold. If something like this gets any worse than what it is now, we're in serious trouble, and we need to be prepared. So, um, you know, pray. I'm praying, and no matter what your religion is, and let's try to come together and find a way to fight this off before things get too crazy. Or if anybody has proof that all of this is complete bullshit, or if you have any information that has to relate to any of this specifically you find important, please leave in the comments below, and we'll try to touch on as much of what you guys are interested in about this particular topic on the next episode as possible. Thank you for sharing. Make sure to share, like, and comment. The more we grow, the more show, the more you view, the more we do. We'll have more fun specials that have to do with the icy weather in Massachusetts, space stuff, and new technology over the next couple weeks, and even some pet stuff. We were going to do that tonight, but with the bird flu stuff, I really didn't want to screw with my pets too much, because I wanted to make sure that I wasn't getting them sick with stuff as well. So yeah, we'll look more into this and see what else we can find out, and you all do the same, and be careful out there. And if things go bad, way worse than if things go worse than what they are now, we may not speak again. So, all of you out there, just I don't know, it's weird to even fucking think about that, but this is the last time we speak. Just protect what you know to be right, and protect the people that can't protect themselves if you can, because things are going to get shitty fast. So, oh, before I forget, make sure to get the stuff they're going to run out of ahead of time before things get too shitty. Do the usual laugh for now. We'll be back in a bit.